Counter-Strike 2 was officially released to the public on September 27, 2023, replacing its predecessor, Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Before that, it was under limited access for beta testing, which select players had access to from March of 2023. Now, Counter-Strike 2 is out of beta and we finally get to have our hands on it. As an avid Valve fan, it's amazing to see the evolution of the Counter-Strike franchise grow over the years. While I wasn't fortunate enough to grow up with Counter-Strike 1.6, I did grow up with Counter-Strike Source, and I'll always remember the fond memories I had in this game. Now, before I jump into my thoughts and impressions of Counter-Strike 2, I feel it would be best to clarify a few things about myself as a Counter-Strike player. I am not a pro competitive player, nor do I have a career in it of any sort. The opinions and feelings you'll be hearing from this point on is the perspective of a casual player who's just a huge fan of Valve games, so opinions may vary upon other players.
Nice.
Terrorists win. Suck on that, sitting in the corner.
With that all set in stone, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So immediately after the launch came out on YouTube, I had no hesitation in downloading CS2 and was able to play it on the first day. Before making this video, I spent a week playing the game so that I can develop a proper opinion and analysis on my impressions regarding CS2. Other than seeing a few screenshots, I've also avoided much of the limited access footage being posted online, as I really wanted to experience the change of the game for myself without having any major expectations. And man, was I glad I made that call. After opening the game for the first time, I was completely baffled and blown back by Source 2's capabilities and the visuals it has given Counter-Strike. Literally, the franchise has never looked this great before. The lighting in this game is significantly more interactive than its predecessor and overall just feels more alive and vibrant. I've also played Half-Life Alyx prior to this, and I've definitely seen a lot of the similarities with how the lighting functions between the two games. You can tell from CS2 that Valve's pushing everything they can to showcase the capabilities of Source 2, and it's just plain awesome. Oh yeah, we finally have legs! One of the most notable changes compared to CSGO are the smoke grenades and Molotovs. While the Molotov is more of a cosmetic improvement, the smoke behaves very differently now. You can shoot through the smoke to get a glimpse of the other side, and even use grenades to temporarily clear the smoke. I'm very curious to see pro players coming up with new tactics with this feature. A new loadout system is also introduced to Counter-Strike, where you can click and drag your new weapon skins and operators onto here, which I think is pretty neat. The buy menu is also given a new facelift, straying away from the buy wheel CSGO had, and opted for a more retro look with categorized buttons, which is sort of similar to the classic Counter-Strike buy menu. The ray tracing and graphical overhaul is just so good that it actually changes some of the mechanics of the gameplay, which I personally feel is a good thing. You now have to be conscious of where you're hiding because depending on your spot, if a bright light is on your side, your own shadow might reveal your location to other players. It's tiny details like this that I find to be really cool. Fortunately, lighting wasn't the only improvement Valve has touched upon. Their maps has also seen major changes and overhauls altogether. Some maps like the iconic Dust 2, for example, looks pretty much the same, with most of the changes happening in the lighting and higher poly models and props. Touchstone maps, as Valve calls them. Upgrade maps such as Nuke utilizes Source 2's new lighting and includes physically based rendering that produces realistic materials, lightings, and reflections, as shown here in the footage. And now we have overhaul maps. Overhaul maps like Overpass and Inferno were some of the biggest jaw droppers I've had. I never imagined Inferno to receive such a massive change that it almost doesn't look like the same map anymore. But then again, Inferno has been through many iterations, many times in the course of Counter-Strike's history. With that being said, the amount of detail that has been implemented in these maps are staggering. With CS2's Inferno, they literally didn't leave a single corner untouched, and it is a beautiful sight of a map and one of the best looking in the game so far. Now, one aspect that Half-Life Alyx didn't really dive much into was the water physics, and in CS2, we get to see some of that for the first time. Upon playing Inferno and Anubis, I've noticed just how realistic the water was, where you can actually see the reflections inside and the ripples and splashes coming from your footsteps. You can see a cool effect where your feet are soaking wet when coming out of the water. It's such a small detail, yet you just become giddy when you see this sort of thing from a video game. Similar to how we see tower reflections in Half-Life 2 for the first time. It's small details like this that really make you feel immersed into the world, and Source 2 really delivers on that immersion. Speaking of immersion, another important change worth mentioning is the audio. CS2 now comes featured with the 3D spatial audio that was used in Half-Life Alyx. Hearing the gunshots and footsteps muffled behind the walls is just another level of immersion that makes me wonder why more games haven't utilized such a feature. Like with the lighting, the audio serves as a change in gameplay mechanics, though not as major. You can listen to some of the game audio here I've recorded for demonstration. Another added bonus to CS2 is tick rate being a thing of the past, as it now utilizes what is called sub-tick rate, which according to Valve, what you see is what you get. With your boy being broke, I don't have the best internet speed, so I am not the guy to be judging about this.
Oh, brother! Oh my god!
Okay.
Bruh, look at this dude.
Yeah, anyway, so there are many more changes to the game that would definitely triple the length of this video if I were to go over all of them, but I think other YouTube videos from the Counter-Strike community are better for that topic. There are plenty of great changes made to the game, but unfortunately not all of the changes were so great. So let's go ahead and go over them. One major con I have with Counter-Strike 2 is the lack of game modes that originally came with Global Offensive. The big ones excluded were Arms Race, Demolition, and Danger Zone. Though to be honest, I don't care too much about the latter. If I'm not mistaken, I've seen reports of Valve remaking Arms Race maps such as Baggage for CS2. So it is very possible they'll be bringing back these game modes in a future update. While they were not the main parts of the game, they added plenty to the Counter-Strike experience and overall feel more like a complete game. It added versatility to CSGO's gameplay, and it's those game modes that makes you want to play more Counter-Strike. Just having the thought of playing Arms Race with your friends on a workshop map makes me want to boot up the game again. And speaking of workshop, the workshop maps from CSGO are no longer compatible with CS2 because of the different game engines, which basically means the entirety of the CSGO workshop is gone. As more players make content for CS2 though, this should all change soon. Now this one is a subjective opinion, so feel free to take this with a grain of salt. CS2's art style has drastically changed from its previous entry, and while this was happening during CSGO's later lifespan, CS2 solidified it. Instead of the grungy and contrasty art style CSGO was known for, it has now opted for a bright and overly saturated one, most likely trying to compete with games such as Fortnite and Valorant. While I can see the bright art style being a benefit for competitive players, I honestly feel like it takes away from what Counter-Strike is known for. But CSGO's art style was distinctive for being a serious and intense game. Now sure, it may have been murky and cold, but that's what added to Counter-Strike's realistic and dangerous tone in my opinion, and it's what made it special compared to other games. CS2, however, when compared side by side, feels almost cartoony, with much more saturation in the colors and a lack of darkness in maps. I remember making this distinction when I first saw a screenshot of Dust 2 from CS2 Limited Access, wondering why everything looks so bright all of a sudden. Now as far as the music goes, I'm going to be a little bit critical with this one since I'm a musician myself. I'm generally not a fan of the dubstep type of music most games have been going for nowadays, and CS2 decided to give its own take on it, and surprisingly enough, I thought it was pretty good considering the style they went for. For the same reason as the art style though, it does once again take away from the seriousness and intensity of Counter-Strike. When I hear CS2's music, you do get intensity, but it's more like hype intensity. Like the type of music you would hear from when you're about to enter some rave party or an esports tournament. Nothing wrong with that, it's just not what I expect to hear in a Counter-Strike game. When you listen to CSGO's music, however, it is a whole new ballpark. CSGO's music delivers on the epicness, the cinematics, and the drama of terrorism, and the orchestra you can hear just embraces on the danger that lies ahead. I get goosebumps all the time listening to the classic CSGO soundtrack. You can just feel how urgent the situation is when in battle. I clearly have a strong preference over CSGO's original soundtrack, but fortunately this is not an issue as CS2 gives us the option to enable the CSGO music anyways. I was a little bummed though when CS2 ditched the epic orchestra. Hopefully I haven't been too harsh on CS2's music, because like I said, I think CS2's soundtrack is great. It just works when it's in the context of esports, which is what the game's identity has been transitioning to over the years, instead of the immersive and realistic tactical shooter we all grew up with. Now the last thing I'll say is performance issues. I would also get moments where my game would just have inconsistent frame rates. I'm running on an RTX 2080 at the time of this video, so for a game like CS2, it shouldn't be struggling at all. Generally though, I usually don't go deep into performance issues as they get fixed later on with future game updates and drivers. However, if you find yourself to be one of those struggling to run CS2, I suggest checking out this handy dandy YouTube video here by the one and only 3 Clicks Philip.
Are we rushing in? Or are we doing sneaky beaky like? No.
Overall, Counter-Strike 2 is a very good sequel to its predecessor, showing us the amazing capabilities of Source 2 and the changes it introduced to its core gameplay. Though I will agree with what the majority of the community has been saying, it still feels incomplete in some aspects with missing game modes and performance issues. I feel confident though that through time, Valve will be addressing our feedback and will be doing what they can to fine-tune the game for us fans. As far as first impressions go, and as a casual CS player, it's definitely my recommendation for Counter-Strike enthusiasts to play Counter-Strike 2. Hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you on the next one.